Hello, my name is Candace Savage, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the third and final presentation in our winter series of Nature City Conversations, sponsored by Wild About Saskatoon. Tonight we have the great pleasure of a program entitled Indigenous Relationships with Plants, a very large and welcoming topic. Um, it's so very good that you're able to join us.
Sweetheart,
We're going
can
to,
you take just this and put it on my bed?
if you haven't yet muted, would you please mute, just so that we're all comfortable here. Okay, there we go. We're using a standard Zoom meeting. So if you would like captions, you will find them on my screen. They're under More on the far right of the screen. And for best viewing, you'll probably want to use the speaker view. I'm sure we're all old hands at this by now. Um, the plan for tonight is to have the presentations first, followed by a Q&A. And to do that, we're going to be using the chat. So you can, I see some of you are already using it. Please just feel free to put comments or questions in there at any time. So I'm speaking to you tonight from my home in Misaskwatumnik, Atikaski, near the banks of the South Saskatchewan River on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis people. We're grateful for the ancestors who have brought us all here and reaffirm the kinship relationship that we are bound to through treaty, to steward this land and seek mutual benefit for as long as the grass grows, the sun shines, and the river flows. In Wild About Saskatoon, we have taken to heart the teaching of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission that justice cannot be restored to relations among people here unless our actions also include healing for the land. And with that thought in mind, it's time for the show to begin. We're going to hear three presentations tonight, and are from Sandra Walker, Kelly Tolley, and the dynamic duo of Faye Maurice and Kendall Hanikenne. And we're going to begin with Sandra. Sandra has worked as an educator in Saskatchewan for major local nature centers, school systems, and also for Wanuskewin, and has also taught numerous workshops. She encourages fellow enthusiasts to foster a respect for nature and helps us all understand that there are ways to feed and support ourselves beyond the supermarket. Sandra, it's all yours.
Hi, thanks for having me. Good evening, everyone. So my background is in archaeology and ethnobotany, and I have to admit the reason I got into ethnobotany is because I had traveled in my early 20s quite a bit, and they celebrate the foods of those cultures, and First Nations was just not there. You don't see anything from it other than supposedly Bannock, and Bannock is, of course, Irish. So, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this picture, I thought. So, when I took my archaeology degree, I wanted to focus on the food sources that disappeared. And part of it is not just because, well, let me start with saying that native prairie is one of the most productive ecosystems on the planet, and our First Nations culture did not have to plant gardens because everything they needed was here in the first place. And when you remove something from that biodiverse situation, you start to lose things. And when they change the landscape into farmland, you lose plants like Indian breadroot, which is the plant, one of my favorite plants, and that's the one I'm going to focus on this evening. Um, it's not considered rare, but to me it is. You do only find it on native prairie at this point. It's a hard plant to grow. It's also known as wild turnip, and it's a member of the lupin family. And so what grows on it is a tuber, and that tuber can be used like a potato are dried in the sun and ground into flour and used to make porridge and those kind of things and biscuits and other stuff. Um, I would say it almost has a flavor of taro root if you've ever had taro root. Mm, But it was a very important crop for the First Nations. You moved your entire camp for that plant, and that plant takes 4 years for it to flower in the first place. This plant has a very symbiotic relationship with the bison. It likes to be eaten and then go through the digestive systems and grow and you know what. And so I've been working at Wanuskewin, and so when we got the bison, one of my big goals was to make sure that the bison got to eat some of the flower heads that have gone to seeds. And so my favorite day at work is I get to wander the side of the hills where if you look, especially on the east side, you'll see these trails that go up and down on an angle. And those are the original trails that the bison went up and down. And that's where all the breadroot is, because that's where they put as well. And so at any rate, I collect the seeds and I give them to our bison manager and he mixes them in with the oats and they get fed the within their oats. The bison are on 430 acres and it's not like you can wander around in there and see if this is working. So I never thought I'd get to see fruition of it. But we've been doing this for 3 years. Last summer was the third year. But they noticed that there was some Indian breadroot growing by the gate. And that's where the bison have been pooping as well. So it is actually working. And so hopefully we get to reseed that whole 430 acres with Indian breadroot. And so we plan on doing this for another 2 or 3 years to make sure that we have, and I have it growing in my yard. So I also bring my flower heads. If you have a really good year, I've gotten like 60 seeds out of them. And I have to admit, it took me forever to figure out how to crack that seed coat. And so I'm very pleased that I have it finally. I have actually 24 of them in my yard. So not all of them are at a mature state either yet. Like I said, it takes a while for that plant to mature. So what I've been doing, because I have all these native plants in my yard and I have all these seeds, I do take them back out to my favorite natural places and play the seed fairy and make sure that those areas get reseeded with a lot of my favorite plants. Like wild onions is my other favorite one. And again, wild onions like to grow mostly in disturbed areas too. And they take a while for that bulb to actually be an edible. You can always eat the leaves on them for a while till it turns into a decent size. They're no bigger than the tip of your baby finger when they're mature, but they're quite delicious. And again, I have them in my yard and I have so many of them that again I take those seeds out to other places and make sure that they get used. So in both cases, both wild onions and Indian breadroot were dried and braided together and used all year round by First Nations people. So when farmland came along, those kind of things disappeared totally because you'll never find Indian breadroot where the land's been disturbed. And actually where the bison was a cultivated area. And we did reseed it with native grasses and a few forbs, but Indian breadroot was the one that was missing. So I was quite pleased to have it get spreaded around. And if anybody has any questions, or maybe I can just pass it on to our next speaker, Kelly Tolley, and I'll hand it back to you, Candace.
Good, unmute. There. That should work better. I should have mentioned earlier that Sandra is a very valued member of Wild About Saskatoon. So I know you quite well, but I had never really thought of you before as the seed fairy. So you keep having surprising new attributes. Well, thank you. What interesting work. Kelly Tolley is Algonquin from Kitigan-Zibi, but she's been calling the prairies here home for 21 years. She came to Saskatchewan to attend the U of S and fell in love with Saskatoon. She works at the Remai Modern as an Indigenous art guide, where she's able to incorporate culture and trees, especially, and other plants too, into her teachings. She has a love for plants, creating art, motherhood, and Saskatooning. Kelly, are you there, Kelly? What has happened to Kelly?
Oh, there we go. I got it.
Hooray.
I was pushing it. It wasn't working for me, the unmute. There we go. Good evening. My name is Kelly Tolley. I am an Algonquin from Kitigan-Zibi. It's an hour and a half north of Ottawa. I grew up in the bush. My dad and my grandpa were guides, and I was able to grow up in a community where we were really connected to plants and got access to elders to teach us different things. So coming out to Saskatoon was a little different living in a city, but what I liked about Saskatoon was the connection to the water and all the beautiful trees we have. To this day, I spend a lot of time by the river and on campus with the trees. That's how I stay connected to the land, and I haven't lost it even being in a city. So working in an art gallery, sometimes people are they're like, how do you work with plants in an art gallery? So I have the opportunity. I work with learning and engagement, and I have the opportunity to work with the youth. A couple of years ago, I built a birchbark canoe live with my neighbor from Kitigan-Zibi came down to help me. His name is Pinook Smith. So the original birchbark canoe, all natural products, so it's all trees. So we use spruce root to sew it. It's made out of birch bark. The interior is all cedar. There's ash wood in there and spruce gum to hold it all together. And that was about we did it over a 4 week period. And I'm able to teach my students how to do different things like eco dyeing and with berries and plants. And I actually met Sandra. We were planting a garden at Wanuskewin, and I thought it was so amazing to find somebody here that could teach me about different plants, native plants that are edible on the prairies. So I'm very happy to be here. And if anybody has any questions, we're going to have questions at the end. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to the questions. I want to know an awful lot more about that canoe. Um, our other speakers tonight are Faye Maurice and Kendall Hanikenne. Faye is a proud descendant of La Prairie Ronde Michif, Round Prairie Michif, and has lived in Saskatoon for almost 70 years. She tells us that she belongs to an amazing Michif Métis community that values the preservation of Michif language, cultural traditions, stories, and history. She is employed at Saskatoon Public Schools as a knowledge keeper in the Métis or Michif unit, often known, I think, as Auntie Faye. And Kendall was born and raised in Saskatoon, but he says, I consider my true home to be the places where I spent much of my childhood. My parents' birthplaces near Horse Lake and Duck Lake, Saskatchewan. He is a grade 4-5 classroom teacher at King George Community School within the Saskatoon Public School Division and an active member of the Michif Métis Gabriel Dumont Local number 11. So please take it away.
All right. Bonsoir, Tanchikiwao, Tanchikakil, Kendall Hanikenne Dishinakashon, and Michifnia. As you heard, from my family's from Duck Lake and Horse Lake area. But I lived in Saskatoon. I grew up here, but spent a lot of time out in the bush with my families. And so that's kind of like what I would like to talk about a little bit. And Auntie Faye.
Ah, thanks, Kendall.
Yeah.
Pleasure to meet you all, old friends and new, I hope. And growing up in the city, it, of course, is much different from growing up in a out on the land. But I think I was fortunate enough that because my father made his living off the land, he picked rocks and picked rocks, cut trees, fence posts, and that sort of thing, sold them. That, you know, I had many opportunities to go out on the land with him. And if I would have been more curious then, I would have known a lot more a lot earlier. But it's thanks to people like Sandra, who has been a real mentor to me in my curiosity journey for plant identification and uses and that sort of thing. So uh, it's just been something I've really enjoyed doing. The more you get to know plants, I believe they're just the more connected you are to the land
Mhm.
and a lot more grateful to the land. So we did prepare a bit of a PowerPoint to just speak on, five plants. I know Kendall has such for a young man, he just knows so much about plants. And it's hard for us to just narrow it down to about five, but I think we were wanting to present more, I guess, on plants that we knew how our ancestors used them, how dependent they were on it. And so, we could start off maybe by talking about, of course, Tequeminana, which is choke cherries.
Mhm.
And Kendall, maybe I'll just let you take it.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
guess we have Seneca root first, but you can
We can
go to
go to,
choke cherries.
yeah, we can go to
And we're
Chokeberry.
trying to pick out five things. It was a little tough.
Yeah.
But choke cherries you will find in every Michif family. Love of choke cherries. And
Mhm.
Kendall, I'll let you take it over from here.
Okay, thanks, Auntie. Yeah, so when I grew up, I learned a lot of the things that I know because of my family taking us out. At the time, we didn't really know it was, a Michif thing or a Métis thing, and it was just something that we did. So it's not just a way of knowing, but rather it's a way of just being and how we just do as people, as a culture. And so, what we didn't know, or what we have been taught, has been passed down from generation to generation across, our immediate families as well as extended families. And we think of the earth and the plants as part of our families too, because we visit them every once in a while, making sure that we're taking care of it. Um, and something I want to really hit home is that doing these things and participating, we did it at all levels. So those out there that have children, or you're getting older, it's never too late and it's never too young to get started and grow a love for plants, because they're always there, they're always around us, and we need to learn how to take care of them because they take care of us. And so we participated in these activities, going out berry picking, and just checking out the land, just visiting basically. And so a lot of these events that we had, um, we're going out with family members and spending time together. That was the biggest thing, among the berry picking. And so those places became our homes. We're surrounded by our family members, and we're taking some of them home with us. And so the Takuhimanana, the choke cherries, they were rich in antioxidants, different types of vitamins, but all these different cherry species, they have something in them that's called cyanide. And so it was quite interesting to see how how we learned to get rid of that cyanide. And part of that was crushing the choke cherries and releasing them and placing them out on baking trays in the sun and letting the sun do its job and get rid of those nasty chemicals in there so that we can enjoy as much as we wanted for as much as that we can stand at least. And so we annually went out and picked choke cherries. Our families, we love to make syrup. One of the biggest things was the syrup. Loved it on pancakes, mixed it with some fresh cream, and oh my goodness, so good. My mom still makes it today. So we still make everything that we did a long time ago. Back in Duck Lake, it was a big staple in our family. One of the other things that we did was make a drink, a very popular drink around the holidays. So around Christmas time, New Year's, it would be called piquette. And so we'd remove the pits and ferment the cherries until it became wine. And you can leave it and add sugar if you wanted it to be a little bit stronger. It just depends on what your tastes are like. And it was a very nice drink. And because we didn't have a whole lot of money back in those days, my family made this piquette. It was on the land. We used it, and it was something that we shared among families and families coming to visit at New Year's and Christmas. People would stop by and for a few minutes, have a little bit of wine, have a little plate of food, and move on to the next house. And so these crushed choke cherries, we crushed them. We put them into patties. We want after they were dried, and we put them into patties, mix them with some lard, and then we would fry them. We could eat them like that. They almost looked like a burger patty. And we would, save that, freeze that, and sometimes even my great grandmother, Grandma Victorine Paranto, she would take some of it and mix it into a stew. So she would take some of the choke cherries, put it into a beef stew or whatever she had type of stew that she made. It would be like adding wine to a beef dish just to add a little bit of acidity, but also give a little bit of color and just that nice berry flavor or cherry flavor. Um, and now my mom and I, we still pick choke cherries to this day. Last a couple of years ago, we picked quite a few choke cherries. They're quite nice and plump, and we added some of the sour cherries, the tart cherries from our backyard that we grow in the city here, and we made a wine from that, a piquette of our own. And so those sour cherries and the choke cherries together made a really nice complement to each other. But it was a really nice, warm nightcap on those cool nights. And so it would actually help put you to sleep. The naturally occurring tryptophan and the melatonin from the choke cherries and the tart cherries would help induce sleepiness. So it was really nice, nice thing to have on a really cool night. So that was one of the plants. Anything else there, Auntie?
I know when we were young, we were told not to eat the pets.
Yeah.
Our old people didn't know what cyanide was. They just knew if you ate them too many, you'd get sick. But anyways, um, yeah, and we would dry them. Quite often, you'd see somebody's roof with the tarp and those clumps of berries drying out there with cheesecloth on top, and then I know they'd bring them in when they were dry and fry them up with lard and sugar, and then we'd stored ours in containers,
Mhm.
froze them for those special occasions. But no, we still pick berries also, and for sure harvesting as a group just strengthens culture, language. We just look forward to it for sure.
Mhm. So,
One of our other plants um, was the Seneca root.
mhm.
And we had a discussion today about how some people call Seneca. Sometimes I hear people call it rat root, but I said, no, I think rat root and Seneca are two different plants. One grows in a marshy, boggy area, and the Seneca we picked it up by Round Prairie. I shouldn't say we, my ancestors and my cousins picked it. And I've got I guess a couple of stories about not Seneca so much, but rat root, that when you chew it and make a poultice and put it on a sore or infection, um, it'll help remove that infection. And I'm living proof twice of that. And rat root works way better than an antibiotic cream, I'll tell you. But they would dig it up, bring it into Saskatoon and sell it to make extra money. And like I said here, my cousin used to get mad when they wouldn't pay as much if there was even just a little dirt on it. And that root would be sent down east for manufacturing penicillin and by the pharmaceutical companies. They didn't get very much, and it was back-breaking work. And but every bit counted,
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
help the family. But the Seneca, I don't know. I call it an antibiotic.
Yeah.
To me, that's what it's like. How about you, Kendall?
Yeah, Seneca, it's kind of hard to find depending on where you are.
Yeah.
It also likes rocky soils. Sometimes you can find them in ditches just out near my home there. We do have some. I don't really um, I wasn't planning on stumbling across it, but I did. But we knew it right away. My mom actually brought some home. She said, "What's this plant?" And I said, "Oh, that's I think that's Seneca." And so I asked her where she found it and took a drive up the next weekend and found it for myself. And then I went driving a little further and stumbled on a hole, probably about 800 meters of it just packed. And so this plant, it's quite small. It's about 6 centimeters in length. And the stalks on it are quite thin. Um, and I would say the plant itself, the flowering head on it looks quite a lot like a snake or rattlesnake tail. And so you could find that it has the base of the flowering buds there would be purple and the tops would be white. And so there was another indigenous group, I believe it's the Navajo, they would use this plant down there as well as a rattlesnake remedy. So when they got bit by a rattlesnake, they would use this to draw the venom out and also help heal that wound. And so a lot of the times they would use this plant as cold and cough medicines as well as sore throat. So that's why it would be used to help treat toothaches and prevent those infections. And one big tell about finding the Seneca is that if you taste some of the stalk or the leaf on it, it'll taste exactly like wintergreen mint. But it's a little bit more kind of more putrid a little bit, but or mentholy kind of, but has a soury taste to it, but wintergreen flavor. And so the roots of it are actually quite snaky and so that's where another way they might have named it snake root. And so these roots have very snaky roots, but they're also a bright yellow color, and so very easy to determine what it is once you get the root up. But again, we got to really make sure that those plants stay reproducing, and so we didn't take too many as well, making sure that we're using the right tools. Narrowhead spade is the best tool for that one, and gently taking out the roots. Um,
Mhm.
the next one is red willow La Rouge. And so this one, I think in Auntie's time there, they would have had some, a little, maybe some fear around that plant, hey?
Go get a branch and make sure it's not thick. Yeah, I'm sure many others experience that one. But anyway, that was Wello. But my mushroom, he would scrape the inner bark and dry it and then smoke it. Mix it also in with tobacco, pipe or paper, however they smoked a long time ago. But the bark I know was simmered to make a tea just for general ailments.
And yeah, so
I think
the
for heart also, for heart medicine.
mhm. So
But
there's
I'm
a
not sure about that.
chemical compound inside that's it's known as salicin, and so used in
Mhm.
salicylic acid. So alongside the where they got the aspirin is what today you would find the same chemical compound in aspirin. And so
Mhm.
very pain relief, high pain relief properties in this plant. Um, but along the river around this time would be the brightest time that it would be, red, nice and bright, January, February, all the way till now. And then in the summer, it becomes a little bit more brown in color. So, but yeah, so
Mhm.
I got the belt and they got the switch, I guess. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh
I
yes.
did everything I could to not get that, so it was good. And they use this plant to make that one of the types of kinnikinnick, so a mixture of tobaccos, and so stretching out the tobacco. Just a long time ago, even smokes would be a little bit hard to come by, and so buying tobacco was something big back then, but something that most
Mhm.
people used, and so this plant would help stretch out that tobacco. But it's known to have a mild narcotic effect, but very mild when smoked. Yeah.
Well, that answers a few questions. Oh, I'm just kidding. No, sorry. Anyway, I'm teasing. Oh, but yeah, willow. Yeah, it's now's the time to pick it too.
Yeah.
Anyways.
So we had a couple other ones. Lipuer, Saskatoon berries, Le Baume, wild mint, and Le Rouge de Notre Pays. And that one's the wild rose. And so a lot of the times we would go out and pick Saskatoon berries just as any other times. And that was the main berry that we would go out and go pick out and invite others to come with us, extended family, old and young, all together. High in antioxidants, anti-inflammatories. The berries were used in all different types of things, teas, desserts, of course, Saskatoon berry pie, tarts, oh, geez, and also pemmican. So
Mhm.
the um, the staple food from long ago, mixing the dried meat, the fats from lard or tallow, and mix that for highly nutritious food in scarce and cold times.
Mm. Yeah, I always wonder how our people knew that these things prevented scurvy. You know,
Mhm.
they didn't have names for things like that.
Yeah,
So that's the part that fascinates me about some of these things, how our ancestors just knew that information that had been passed down. Yeah. And the wild mint. Oh, of course, lots of teas are in our culture. Then would make tea. Tea is like a staple. You go into a Michif home, the first thing you're offered is tea. That's just so teas of all kinds. Yes.
yeah. Mm,
Um, and the mint is probably one of my favorites also. Yeah,
yeah.
I
Most
don't know
common.
about you, Kendall.
Yeah, most common. It's more like a spearmint type of tea. Very
Mhm.
good. I like having it when I have a cold, by putting in some honey or just having it just like that, or even just chewing the leaves along the riverbank, finding some and just having a nice cool break. Let that get rid of the thirst. Um, but this plant, the mint, would also stimulate menstrual flow, and so one of these types of mint. we'd have to be very careful with for women that are pregnant. We don't want
Yeah,
to
that's right.
cause a miscarriage or induce yeah, early menstrual
Mm.
cycle. So yeah, there are other plants that look a lot like wild mint along the riverbanks. It looks the same, but those ones we got to watch out for because they'll give you uh, quite strong stomach cramps. And so one day I was picking a little bit quick. I think there was a hailstorm coming, and picked a couple quick and ended up having a sore belly, but figured out pretty quick that yeah, I picked the wrong ones.
Oops.
Or a
Oops.
couple wrong ones. Yeah, oops. No.
Yeah. Uh, that's how you say, excuse me in Michif. You go, oops. Yeah.
Oops. Oh, that's what my
Anyway.
grandma meant.
Yeah.
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 And the last there's the wild rose, le rose de notre pays. And so used as hard tonics. The rose hips are high in vitamin C, or yeah, vitamin C, and so used a lot of the times to make some jellies. Eat raw. Just make sure you're not eating the seeds because they'll get through you and cause you to have a real itchy bum.
Mm.
We had Sandra calling me, itchy bum berries. And yeah, I remember my great grandma saying, you're going to get itchy bum if you eat those ones. And so,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
But
Oops.
when I go for walks or hikes or stuff like that, my favorite thing is to take a few petals once the plant is starting to go and mix it with some water and just have a nice refreshing drink. Some of those petals could be made to use make a nice um, nice jelly, nice garnish on some dishes as well. But yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And the next one, there's the one more, and I thought, oh, I've got to put this one in, and that's the wolf willow berry. I always think, don't judge a book by its cover, and this don't judge a berry by its looks. But and I've been out with Sandra, and I'd never tasted them before, but I did with her, and I said, "Oh my God, that tastes like sweet dirt," and she had said, "Well, if you were hungry, you'd eat them." And I thought, "Oh, for sure, I probably would." But darn, of all the berries in our region, this is my least favorite to eat. That's for sure.
Mhm.
But it just has the most beautiful seed, and I know we did a little workshop on. We went and harvested the wolf willow berries and uh, boiled rub the pulp as much as you can off and then boil the rest of it, and this beautiful seed emerges, and it's soft enough at that point to put a needle through, and so we made rosaries, and of course, as Mitchifs, we are Catholic, so rosaries are important to us. So uh, yeah, it was just really nice. And the last couple of years, I phoned Sandra every year. You seeing any wolf willow? No, no. And I'm going, well, where the heck are they? And so she said, well, they're maybe biannual. I said, jeepers, it's been like 2 years since the Chief Whitecap Park there. I've picked berries there. I hope this year, Sandra. I don't.
Mhm.
If those bushes run its course or they mature and don't produce anymore, I don't know, but they were pretty plentiful at one point, and now they're not. I don't know if
There
they
is some
are in
out at
other.
Furdale pretty right now, and they'd be available if you're looking for just the necklaces. Yeah.
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no berries whatsoever. So if
Mhm.
anybody knows where we can, you know, find some wolf willow berries,
Yeah.
I
Well,
will go and peck. Yeah.
if you're walking along the riverbank and you smell a strong whiff of cat pee, that's probably these berries. That yellow bloom. Oh boy, when you go down by the Meewasin trails, you'll smell it. It's quite quite distinct. But yeah, I remember going to the workshop with Sandra when she made some of these biscuits with the wolf willow. I found it tasted almost exactly like matcha green tea, and so I really liked that. It was tasty. Yeah.
What, this berry, Kendall?
Yeah, yeah, I remember they're
Mhm.
a
Oh,
green
boy.
biscuit and they taste like
Yep. Mhm.
matcha. Yeah, yeah, they're really good. Yeah,
Oh, right.
yeah.
Your palate's different from mine. But anyway,
Yeah.
anyway,
And
but so we talk about stewardship also, and I think as Michif people, I like to say we're pretty responsible when we go out in the bush to harvest or go places because, we know that we just don't damage the plants or the bushes, trees, whatever, and that we leave our place looking as good, if not better, as when we came.
yeah,
And
yeah,
of
it
course,
was,
eating, that's so important.
yeah,
I said my relatives picked Seneca root, and we went back to the spot where they used to pick, and we couldn't find it. So somebody obviously cleaned the area out, which was sad for us.
yeah,
But and of course our values, our Michif values is to be generous, share what you pick. We always picked extra for other people. I still pick for other people, and just give it away. Not all of our old people can go out and pick anymore, but they like a good feed of Saskatoons or, choke cherries. And
mhm,
of course, the giving thanks. And I have to laugh. One of our old Michif fellas there said, you always thank the creator. And he's one of the few Michifs I know that lay tobacco down. Most of us Michifs don't lay tobacco. We pray to God, thank God for what we're picking. And so he says, well, after I lay tobacco down, I also say a Hail Mary. That way all my bases are covered. So anyway, we have to laugh. But but for sure, most Michifs I know always give thanks. I guess you do too, Kendall.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you got to be
Yeah,
grateful. You got
yeah,
to be grateful for what we have and what we're given, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
And then of course use what you pick, don't waste. But just one more thing on the whole, when Kelly was talking about art and artistic design, I go, well, the inspiration uh, for for our relatives, the Michif people, definitely came from nature's gifts, and it's evident in all our floral embroidery and our floral beadwork,
yeah,
and I've heard stories of women sitting and they have a story for each plant as they're sewing it,
yeah,
and and there's something just very spiritual about it, that you do see. So I don't know. That's it for me,
yeah.
actually. But uh, Kendall, you have anything else?
I just wanted to end off with something. I just wanted to say to learn is to connect to the old ways of doing things.
Hmm.
We to the people that have taken care of this land for generations, our relatives, those that who have related to these plants, not just as living things, but just as family. And so I
Yeah.
challenge people to prepare yourself to connect in other ways about learning about the plants, rather than just simply cooking or harvesting these plants, but by surrounding yourselves with their presence. Take participation in other things like art or documentation about these plants and noting all the differences in each season, getting to know the plants like they are your family, because once you do that, everything changes. And those values, those thoughts, and those actions are passed down to the next generation. And so that's something that I want to teach my kids. At King George School. Shout out to Shauna there. I see you joined as well, so good to see you. But making sure that everybody is going in the direction that we're going to sustain and give back to our land just as it's taking care of us. So yeah, that's all for
Hmm.
me. Like shit.
Hmm. That's it for me too. Thank you for listening to us.
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your generosity in sharing that knowledge. There's so much to know about these plants and about how to use them and care for them. Yes, people in the chat are saying thank you too. There are a number of questions for you, but I have some too. I want to know, Kendall, Faye, Kelly, I know what Sandra thinks about this, but how do you feel about growing these plants? If people are bringing some of these medicines with all their beauty into urban places, into gardens, how do you feel about that?
Well, if I could speak first, I think the education's got to go along with it. There has to be some sort of education to go with those plants. But no, we have a lot of I guess we have a lot of space, and I think the more berries, the more edible plants we can bring into our environment. For me, hey, it's maybe better than grass. I don't know for me, but yeah.
Any other comments on that?
For myself, I like to find places that are growing and add to those places. Last year, I was able to go grow sweetgrass on my back deck, which surprised a lot of people. They're like, "That's not sweetgrass." I was like, "Smell it." Yes, it is. And then they're like, "Wow, you're just growing it on your back deck, you know?" So sometimes we may be urban, but we can find ways to have those plants around us. And it truly makes me feel good to have my indoor and my outdoor plants. So um, for sure
Yes.
to spread that wealth and share as well.
And for myself, I would say, like it's great to replenish the places where it's naturally growing, where it's natively growing, um, because we always got to really be cognizant of not disturbing the natural ecosystem there, making sure that we're doing it right. So being, like Auntie Faye said, is making sure that you're educated about it and not just doing it because it can really disturb what's naturally happening there, what eats it, what doesn't, and what grows around it as well, because that all makes a big difference.
Is it easy to
Yeah.
find these medicines now?
What was that, Candace?
Is it easy to find these plants, these foods, and these medicines? With all the changes that have happened in the last 100 years and last 150 years, are they rare? How healthy are they? How easy is it for you to find them and harvest them? How secure is the knowledge of these plants?
Indian breadroot is you only find it on native prairie, and there's so little of native prairie left. And so I did it by growing it in my yard so I could finally taste it. And same with I have both wild onion, the nodding onions, which are rare. I bought the seeds from a greenhouse. And so when I finally get enough of them growing, I'll make sure I get seeds back out there. But that's when I'll taste it. I still haven't tasted a nodding onion. So I think if people are being respectful, don't take from the wild and get seeds from places that do sell them and make sure that you're giving back to nature too in many respects. Like I said, I like to make sure that I've been spreading my native seeds in back into some of my favorite wild spaces. So, and I've noticed a difference over the years because I've been doing it for years. I know patches of wild onions that weren't there before. They are now.
Another thing too is the introduced species. They're just choking out so much of our natural habitat, our plants. So, uh, and I don't know how you stop that. I really don't.
Yeah, invasive plants are huge.
The invasive, yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
find it's getting harder and harder to find healthy plants. But I find a lot of other medicinal plants that are, it's kind of like whack-a-mole. They disappear one place and they come up another if they're not healthy. Somehow, maybe it's the birds or something like that, or I'm not sure, but um, some plants are getting harder to find, but it's getting harder and harder to find healthy plants and
That's for
plants that
sure.
are shielded from things like wind and changing weather systems as well.
Yeah, the environment. I've heard it said that these medicines are losing their power, from all the sprays and chemicals and our environment. So, yeah, there's something quite spiritual for me about the harvesting of medicines. And partly, you have to believe it for me. You have to believe in it. Um, and I do. I also believe that if you aren't grateful or don't give thanks, those plants might not be there the next time you go back. Think those things kind of um, are taught to us,
Yeah,
not
I
so
think
much the Mhm.
one of the biggest problems I've been noticing out in nature is the plant diseases such as black knotty fungus and juniper rust on Saskatoon berries and fire blight. And it's
Mhm.
because humans are intervening too much. And I get that natural fires are considered property damage, but that's part of the link that's missing, along with the bison, because they would have grazed that right down most of the time. And those plants have to come back by their root systems. They come back nice and healthy. And yeah, one thing I forgot to mention about Indian breadroot, I remember when Kendall was talking about the medicines there. Indian breadroot is a really good starch for people that have diabetes because it doesn't convert to sugar compared to other starches like potatoes. And so it would it would be nice to actually see it harvested and sold like taro root. Why aren't we doing these kind of things and bringing those kind of foods back into our food source groceries,
Mhm.
you know?
So from
Mhm.
the chat, we have a couple of related questions. One is from Jade. Is it okay to share this knowledge? And related to that, would it be possible to post your slides from tonight? Would you be comfortable with that?
I have no problem at all with it. Yeah.
We will do that then. So anyone who would like to see the beautiful slides, you will find them on the conversations page on the Wild About Saskatoon website in due course in a few days.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But what about sharing this knowledge if you're learning it from a book or learning it kind of casually without the kind of intense study that you were talking about, Kendall?
Yeah, it's not mine to have it. It's given to me. Like it was given to me, so I'm gonna let everybody that wants to learn. That's the way that we have to go forward and pass on this information. Otherwise, if it stays with us, then it dies with us as well. Um, so passing on that knowledge to anybody, the plants aren't ours to own. They're afforded to us by the Creator and our God, and so that's given unto us, and so it's free for everybody.
Mhm.
So there's some other resources that people might be interested in. This wonderful book of plant cards produced by the Gabriel Dumont Institute, Plants Growing Along the River. I will not butcher the Michif.
Mhm.
Lots of Michif names and Cree names and bits of information about plants that grow along the South Saskatchewan River.
That's a good one.
Another book that someone has also kindly listed in the chat is Christy Belcourt's beautiful book, Medicines to Help Us, Traditional Métis Plant Use.
Ah.
And
And
then,
like my elders always said, take what you need, not what you want. So I got to remember that.
Yeah. Mhm.
and then,
Yeah.
of course, there's also this book by a certain Sandra Walker called The Path to
Thanks.
Wild, which again, you're going to be. And where can one purchase these books? Well, at least these two are be readily available through any bookstore. And this little one from the Gabriel Dumont Institute, you might have to be a bit luckier. I don't know if they have any left, but that's where they're from, the Gabriel Dumont Institute. So I bought this through their website, so you could have a look and see if you struck it lucky. Before we close here, I want to ask Kelly about the canoe. Where is the canoe?
The canoe is currently at Remai Modern. We use it for last year. I had a class and they got to take it out on the water because they didn't believe me it was going to float. So I work. We have a Art for Life class that we offer within the inner city schools. Couple of schools for programming for 2 years, but I've continued on with the Let's Lead out of Westmount, which is a leadership class. So they got to take the canoe out last year. So we're working on having it on display at the Ramey, but we also use it for teaching purposes and what we were just talking about too with global warming, we're seeing it in the bark, on when you look at bark, it's not how it used to be. We used to be able to carry water with bark and hit rocks and different things. And nowadays the bark is, you see a lot of damage on it. You see the oils have burnt through because of the sun and clear cutting and global warming, what we're doing to the earth. So the plants are speaking to us in all different kinds of forms, whether it be weather or diseases. And we really have to be conscious of what we're doing because some of these things are getting harder and harder to find. And the quality is not, even the cedar, when you're splitting cedar, when I was younger, you could split it like cheese string, nowadays you're trying to split and the trees are all crooked and all bent and it's a sad thing.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh.
On a detail here, Kelly, Hannah would like to know which tree gum did you say held the canoe together?
So we use spruce gum and we take spruce gum and we filter it. And traditionally we would use bear fat, but nowadays we use tender flake and the bears appreciate it. So you use that just to make it list. But if you really needed to, like your canoe was damaged, you could cook up spruce gum, any kind of canoe, and put it on, and it would get you to where you need to go. But we would filter it and then add a little bit of fat, and then that becomes almost like glass. But you're able to reheat that and patch it whenever you need be.
And you said we could see this canoe if we're in Saskatoon?
We're working on getting it displayed at the Ramey.
Okay. Well, please let us know. People are putting some wonderful other resources into the chat here. I don't have time now to go and pull them off my shelf, but Nora Stewart made a book called Cultivating Our Roots, Growing Authentic Prairie Wildflowers and Grasses, which is a manual for propagating some species. It is also a very wonderful book. And Lori has told us about her friend Lori-Ann Bird, who has released a book called Revered Roots, Ancestral Teachings and Wisdom of Wild, Edible, and Medicinal Plants. The wonderful thing, I mean, there's so much knowledge here, as Kendall is reminding us, as Faye is reminding us, as all of you have reminded us, so much knowledge, and to have resources that are about our place here along this river is so valuable. So we're very fortunate.
Mm.
Yeah. And also someone has contributed, Linda has contributed a link to sources for native plants and seeds in Manitoba, because people have been wondering where around Saskatoon can you get these plants. Fortunately, we have a couple of local native plant growers in this area. And I think that's my cue to tell you that on the 8th of June, let me check my calendar because I have a terrible reputation for getting things slightly wrong. June, on the Sunday, the 8th of June, Wild About Saskatoon will be hosting a pollinator celebration and native plant market in the school grounds behind Buena Vista School in Saskatoon in the afternoon. And so we hope those of you who are nearby will come and join us there. This is our second annual event. Last year was a big success and made us all very happy. And we'd be even happier to see you there. This presentation tonight, these wonderful presentations have been recorded, and they will be available through our website, through social media, probably in a matter of hours. Many more wonderful resources appearing in the chat. Quickly have a look, because it's almost time to say goodbye, and to thank all four of you, not just or even mainly for being with us tonight, but for all the work you're doing, for all the love you bring to these plants, and the depth of knowledge you have, and the way that you remind us of what these relatives offer, trees, and how we can live with them well. Trees and herbs and mint and breadroot, above the ground, below the ground. By the time we wake up tomorrow, it will be spring. And you know that we are going to see those plants, those relatives coming back to visit us again. So with that beautiful thought in mind, I will say goodbye. The website is full. The chat is full of thanks in several languages. Thanks to you all for sharing your knowledge tonight. And so we'll say good night.